Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Today, Council Future Conflict, episode 451. Syria is sinking, and the Republic of Korea martial law. I tried not to get cute with it because that pretty much says it all. I do want to say, I want to thank everybody who reached out to me on. Mostly on X in the DM saying, "Hey, hope everything is okay." This, that, and the third. I appreciate that. Everything's fine here. Most people, if you weren't watching the news, never even knew about it, but it is all over the news here. It's literally all they're talking about. So, to the extent that I have just talked about it, that's all I'm going to say because there are reasons why I can't. And when we get to that segment of the show, I'm going to adios. And I'm going to let my two compatriots talk about it. I know that's lame. Hey, at some point in the future, I'll probably be able to talk more about it in more depth. But there are very specific reasons that I'm not going to refer to that I can't get into it. So just me saying that I can't get into it is about all I'm going to say.
It's going to be funny when we tell everyone that you were the actual architect of it later on.
Hey, now that's a damn lie. Joe, how you doing today, brother?
Man, I'm well and good. Everyone's home today, so that's a good thing. Al and Linda are going to come up here, and today Al and I are setting up the new surplus store that's going to be over in the shed above the fire truck. So going to be some cool stuff going on here at the camp. We're getting ready for a season of classes. We have a lot going on. A lot of fun stuff happening. So
it was good seeing you. You were dropping dates and things like that, announcements for upcoming classes. I noticed that you're snowbirding a little bit, getting into North Carolina when it gets the coldest, I guess, there in Montana. Can't say that I blame you there.
I may even be going to Vegas in January, so we will see.
Nice.
It worked out so good. So I was already debating whether or not I was going to go to SHOT Show. And fortunately, our favorite member of local royalty here brought it up over Thanksgiving dinner, and I couldn't get yelled at about the potential of me going somewhere because we were at somebody else's house. So
yeah,
worked out good. So
is that what you would be
to her brother's ideas? So she was like, "Well, we could probably make that work." I'm like, "All right, cool."
Well, so you would be going for SHOT Show if you went?
Yeah.
All right. I mean, that's fun because you get to see all the new toys and everything.
Yeah. So I've now officially been invited by two bitter rivals. So we'll see how that goes. But I know where my loyalties lay, so all will be good.
That's fair. All right, Watcher, how you doing today, brother?
Today's a great day, Scott. I got a new computer. Very happy with it. It's above freezing. The birds that were just on top of my roof scared off fairly easy once I fired a warning shot. Everything's good.
Nice. It's kind of nice to live in a place where you could just kind of fire a warning shot if you feel like it.
Facts. That also felt.
Watchers like that total meme. Like, hey, I fired a warning shot, and like, Watcher, you just blew one of them up. Yes, and the others are now warned.
The others.
I plead the fifth.
Well, Joe, let's be honest. This is all just build up for when he and his family decide to move out to Montana and take up residence with you there on the ranch. So.
Yeah. Hey, solid law, no guinea fowl. All right. Don't need none of that.
Look, man, this is a constitutional carry state, and there are no laws about long guns in the vehicle. So you can roll around with a shotgun on the passenger seat. Nothing wrong with
that. Yes, I did in fact take Biden's advice. I may have blown its lungs out with a 9mm.
9 millimeter. Well, if you shot with an AR-15, it would have blown a crater in the ground.
In the moon.
When we were talking about classes, Matt and I are discussing the potential for one of his night combat classes here. So,
oh, cool.
That's always fun. I think that we may actually run sometime in the fall fighting Kalashnikov, fighting carbine, and night fighting. So,
yeah, I mean it's there's a lot of opportunities for that type of stuff in in your AO where you're living there. So
I mean, cool. I've got some great patrol FTX classes coming up where we're just going to get out and use the skills learned in our classes and spend a weekend out in that 6 million acres that's just off to the left of federal land, and it's going to be pretty solid.
Yeah, that would be awesome, dude. Just being able to kind of just have the land to kind of do some free maneuver, just some scenarios and that kind of stuff, rather than, using the skills that you've learned versus just, sitting around learning and taking classes and things. Not to say there's anything wrong with classes, but, sometimes it's more fun to get out in the woods and just, free flow a little bit. All right.
You know what? I do have some funny news.
Yeah.
So ever since we moved here, Mrs. Tactical Wisdom has sworn up and down that elk are not real because everyone but her has seen them out here. Right? and most famously, Matt and I having to drive through them. Right. Yeah. And then she walks in here last night with this look on her face. I'm like, what? She goes, so elk are real. I'm like, I know. She goes, no, I just encountered 2 of them in the middle of the road in the middle of the night. I'm like, well, good. Obviously, you drove in here, so you didn't encounter them too violently. So
yeah, it's not. Well, see, that's the problem. Is like encountering elk on the road. Those things are a lot bigger than regular deer. So you don't want to be you don't want to find them right at a blind corner, in the road where
she was already freaked enough when she saw the difference between a mule deer and a white-tailed deer. And now that she's actually seen an elk in the wild in the road, she's like, no, that's not a thing. I don't want anything to do with that anymore. So,
all right, guys, anything else we need to chat about before we get the show on the road?
Just a regular letting chat know they're on fire before we get moving. You guys are awesome. Thanks for being here.
I bet he got his nods back. But that's the reason why we do tie downs on equipment. Is like what we saw with that $50,000 nods just sitting there on the sidewalk.
Yeah, that dude's having a bad day. He's got to go through the Board of Inquest today. Board of Inquiry.
Well, I think that's the least of his worries. Honest, if I'm honest.
Yeah, right.
I will say that I've never seen so many quad tubes in one location at one time than the entrance to the.
Scott, you have been interrupted.
I know. Hunch the Dirty Roofer has gifted 5 Future Conflict memberships. So thank Hunch in the chat if you were the recipient of one of those kind gifts. And Hunch, we appreciate you, brother. We thank you very much for blessing the chat and helping us out. We really appreciate it. Let me. So just on the topic of helping us out, if you feel the need to help us out, help me avoid the martial law and all that. Never mind. Then there's 2 ways really to do that. Memberships you can do with either Rumble or YouTube. Hunch has gifted these memberships. So if you got one, then you got a $5 gift from him. That will give you the opportunity to, you show up different in the chat and you get a free $5 equivalent super chat every month. So that's, it's worth, it's like you buying a $5 super chat, right? So, and the other thing you can do is super chats, right? We really appreciate those. And assuming I see it, and I usually do, I will interrupt for a $10 super chat, and we will definitely read all other super chats.
Hell yeah.
So, and you can do those on both platforms as well. So anyway, those are the two ways you can support us if you choose to. If not, I appreciate it. Just the fact that you're here in the chat makes me feel good. So, all right, that's all I got. Let's jump right into the first odds and ends story here today. Joe, I almost feel like this is like, where's our Philippines-China story for this week? It's pretty much a guarantee. And some weeks we've had Philippines-China stories, we just didn't even run them because it's like sometimes it's just too much, right?
In the meantime, in addition to this, there's like some internal drama between the president and vice president of Philippines that's actually led to death threats. Philippines is just one of those places where like there's a million things going on at once all the time. So the vice president said, if I get killed, I've already set it up with a hitman to kill Bong Bong. And I'm like, what? If you're dead, how is that going to happen? But
I get the feeling one of Bong Bong's dad's hitman is probably still hanging around protecting him. So better watch out by that.
Yeah, it's a crazy situation. So.
It's the Philippines.
These Coast Guard encounters are going to end up costing a life soon. We had some pretty bad injuries before, but it's going to get pretty bad.
Yeah, the Coast Guard has had injuries. We did remember the famous stabbing incidents where they went after
stabbing
them.
and an axing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right, with axes and essentially boarding, hand-to-hand boarding weapons. And
dude was like, I'm going to axe you something. He goes, don't you mean ask? Nope.
No.
And Joe, do you remember the video it was shot on board the Philippine Coast Guard vessel, or it was the resupply vessel? And it showed how that high pressure water hitting the boat is like, that's like a legit threat, for people, especially people who are on deck. It could easily, push you off into the ocean.
Let's remember that China and the Indians fight regularly at high altitude with just sticks and spears and handheld weapons.
Yeah. The irony is that they even have guns. They just, don't even think to use them. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know.
Well, it's a zone in there where they're all prohibited from using firearms. They carry them.
So this is the AP story. The Philippines say China's Coast Guard fired water cannons and sideswiped its patrol vessel. I don't know why these guys don't fire water cannons back at the Chinese, if I'm honest. That seems like a proportional response, Joe. Chinese Coast Guard vessels backed by Navy ships fired powerful water cannons and blocked and sideswiped a Philippine patrol vessel on Wednesday in renewed aggression at a disputed shoal in the South China Sea, the Philippine official said. The three Philippine Coast Guard and Bureau of Fisheries vessels were on a routine patrol to protect Filipino fishermen at the Scarborough Shoal when several Chinese Coast Guard and Navy ships approached and staged aggressive actions after dawn. The Philippine Coast Guard said there were no immediate comment from Chinese officials. In the past, they have repeatedly cited claims of Chinese sovereignty in contested offshore region and their determination to defend what they say is their territory despite a 2016 international arbitration decision that invalidated Beijing's claims. The United States condemned China's unlawful use of water cannons and dangerous maneuvers, saying that it put lives at risk. And I think it does. Joe, let's be honest. China's just going to keep doing this until the Philippines or potentially us do something about it. And, what do you think?
Any bully in any neighborhood, right? They're going to
Yeah.
keep pushing until somebody pushes back, and it'll need to happen.
Yeah, and ultimately they're effectively gaslighting the entire world when they basically say, "Oh, this shoal is ours." It's even though it's 90 miles off your shore and it's 1,000 miles away from ours, it's still ours.
I had an interesting thought the other day, which so you guys, this is going to sound like it doesn't apply, but it really does. Are you guys aware of the cod wars that happened between England and I want to say Iceland?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. In the
So
North Sea. Yeah.
yeah, and a lot of that had to do with the way that the internationally agreed to law of the sea applied, and Iceland essentially said no, it's not going to. And after a lot of violence and pushback, the international community said, okay, well, it's that way everywhere except Iceland and these specific things, and they gave them cutouts. I wonder if China is actually taking inspiration from the cod wars because the behavior is so very similar, and I think they're angling towards the exact same thing, just whereas the Icelandic were trying to protect their traditional fishing grounds,
yeah.
the Chinese are saying, hey, same principle applies and we just want it.
Well, knowing the Chinese mindset, they would never acknowledge that, because if the Chinese didn't come up with it, it was not a good idea. So they
Yeah.
would probably tell you that the those Vikings on Iceland got the idea from the Chinese, who showed up and built their ships, 1,300 years ago. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Uh,
And the whole idea of fighting the Iceland people is silly because they don't even have a military. But it's the last true Viking nation left. Here's a piece of trivia for the chat. Iceland has the longest standing legislative body in the world. The all thing has existed since around 900 and something.
yeah. Excuse me. I don't know. I had something so go down the wrong way. All right. Let's see. Despite the Chinese ships' reckless maneuvers, the Philippine Coast Guard and the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources said they renewed their commitment to protecting the rights and safety of our fishermen within our maritime jurisdiction. This is exactly what they need to do, though. In addition to potentially kind of pushing back a little more in kind, they need to continue to patrol these areas. They can't give over to allow the Chinese to establish any kind of supremacy in any of these areas. Now, it's a lot harder for a smaller, poorer country like the Philippines, who has to go head to head with the Chinese. But this is one of those areas, Joe, I think that we can actually be of some benefit. And this does have U.S. national security interests in alignment with it, right? It's like we actually have business in this neighborhood, whereas places like Ukraine, it's kind of like, well, what the hell are we doing
Well,
there?
yeah, and times they are a changing because as of this morning, the Gerald Ford is in the Straits of Malacca and transiting in that direction.
Yeah.
So,
So we'll
we,
have three carriers in the Pacific at one time.
mhm. So
Um,
we shall see.
is it going to home station in Japan? Is that right? Is that where that one's going?
Yeah,
The Gerald Ford? Yeah.
yeah, but I would imagine that en route it's going to swing up the Celebes Sea right through the center of the Philippines. So,
Oh, good. Here's the thing, Andy. When you see a country like that, what do you notice about it? And it's not about the race of the people, it's about the fact that they're all the same culture. All the people there are almost entirely the same culture. When you have that, everybody is kind of rowing in the same direction culturally. And it leads to shockingly decent outcomes when it comes to civil society, because you all share the same values and you all, are doing the same thing. All right.
and there, when you see a woman with brown hair, you go, she dyes it. Not like the blonde women like we do here.
Yeah, it's the other way around. A girl's got to go dark over there versus going blonde like they do here. Let's see. We will continue to be vigilant in safeguarding our national interests in the West Philippine Sea. The two Philippine law enforcement agencies said, using the Philippine name for the sea off the archipelago's western coast. The Chinese maritime maneuvers are not
So did
standard
I
law
just now,
enforcement.
by the way.
What's that?
I refuse to call it the South China Sea. It is a celibate sea. Anyway.
Yeah. Let's see. These Chinese maneuvers are not standard law enforcement actions. The Philippine Coast Guard added that they should be interpreted as unlawful aggression by international law violators. There's no such thing as international law, and that's the reason why China continues to do this. If there was an actual international law that meant anything, China would stop. Oh, it's an international law. Well, we better not do this. But there is no international law. There
is no such thing. Yes.
Yeah, it's like, you can nail apples to a telephone pole, but that'll make it an apple tree, right?
That's an interesting one, but I like it.
Don't piss up my leg and tell me it's raining. That's another one. Peter says helicopter tours for $5 over in the Rumble chat says, panel, what's the strangest thing that followed you home from military service? Someone following Joe's seasonal gear changeover advice found 200 5.56 blanks and a half dozen BFAs in a wet weather bag.
So, ironically, I was just repacking some of my stuff, and I found some 5.56 and 7.62 blanks and a couple of different kinds of BFAs in it, but I still use them. So keep those around; they'll come in handy. NC Scout and I use those in their classes quite regularly. So
I have never brought anything like that home on purpose because it's like I have enough junk. I don't need to bring new junk home. But I do have probably 5 or 6 boxes of blanks that ended up in my stuff somehow after FTXs and things like this. And so they have accumulated in my ammo collection at my dad's place. So they're just kind of hanging out there.
I ironically have a pair of American Munitions Company handcuffs. There's only one entity in the world who uses those, and it's the United States military police establishment. So there's a pair of those bouncing around the house here, along with a expandable riot baton that could only have come from that same place.
Joe, I have found, how like when you have a total noob who's shooting a gun, they get kind of freaked out by the fact that it's shooting something down and it, that could potentially kill somebody, right? So like people who have expressed high levels of anxiety that like just of shooting guns and things like that. One of the things that I've done that worked out pretty well was have them shoot blanks on an AR-15 first. And it's like knowing that it's a blank. It's like, it can't, it's not you're not shooting a bullet out there or whatever. It, for some reason that kind of, settles them down a little bit so you can get a couple blanks through, and have them cycle the, action and things like that. And then you're able to shoot live ammo. I always say it's always very kind of, you got to be very cautious when mixing blanks and live ammo. But if you treat the blanks like live ammo and then just shoot those 3 and then you're done and you're straight on live ammo, it's a better way to do it, I think.
Yeah, and you know what? Mrs. Tactical Wisdom always worries when we do classes with blanks, but we make everyone stand in a circle, pull out all their magazines, show that they're empty, show their action is empty before we issue the blanks. So for that very reason, right? We don't shut up, Hunch. We don't let people just fill their own magazines and go out into the field, right? You have to be supervised to make sure that we only have blanks going out there. So
Hunch the Dirty Roof for $5 says, "Hey Joe, but the tie-dyed faux fur you added to the cuffs is a bit much." Oh, come on!
Everybody, ask yourself how Hunch knows that. Ha!
That's yet another one of those mysteries that I'm not interested in. All right. That's about it here. I mean, this continues to go on. I hate to say there's nothing new here but what's important here is not to say, "Hey, oh my gosh, guys, there's something completely unique that's never happened before." I sure hope so, especially after all the radiation I've been around. Joe, it's not that there's anything groundbreaking that happens with these kind of checkups with the Philippines and China. What I'm trying to get across to the audience is like, oh, by the way, stuff is still happening between, it's like just because you're not thinking about it doesn't mean there isn't regular stuff happening in the South China Sea, on the regular, between China and the Philippines, or China and Taiwan, and China, Vietnam, China, Brunei, or Indonesia, or wherever. All right. Anything else on the Philippines, guys?
No, but I just watched see that continue to escalate. So
yeah. On the idea of, I just like to kind of continue to emphasize the reality of what's going on, despite what you may hear in the news. Visualizing Ukraine's collapsing front lines amidst the steady Russian onslaught. And so I actually found this first actually on X, because DD Geopolitics finally decided to unblock me so I can see their tweets nowadays. That happened like in the last week or so. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So Watcher, if you could open up the tweet that's within the story, I think it's worth just kind of watching this video. It's 30 seconds, and it gives you basically, how this whole thing has gone down in the Donbass, and the Donbass, Luhansk, the Donetsk, Zaporizhia, all along this front line. I think this is it's a pretty telling story. Yeah, there we go. Let's give this a watch. And Joe, if you anything you want to point out, feel free. I think it's just crappy music.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a Ukrainian aligned video. Ask me how I know.
Well, it's a Ukrainian aligned video that's showing the absolute dog shit that Ukraine is getting kicked out.
I get you, but playing Ukrainian hard folk bass in the background.
Well, that's tough to take. That's true. So interesting. So we've talked a lot about the stuff that's going on, whether it was Bakhmut last year or this year. It's been heading to Pokrovsk. One of the things that we haven't talked much about is look down here in the South, how much they're just gobbling away in the South. This is in the area just to the west or to the east of where the spring offensive was.
The spring offensive that came in the fall.
In the fall, that's right. Well, it went all summer and fall and still never really went anywhere. Let's be honest. They've done a lot better in Kursk than they did with the spring offensive, but they're losing. They've already lost over half of what they gained initially in Kursk. So, I mean, it's like on every front, they are kind of just whittling away and collapsing. And I hate to say it, but I think it's important for us to continue to remember this, especially, Joe, we're getting ready to get into the season where Trump comes in and he's going to be dealing with the Ukrainians as far as and there's going to be all this talk about negotiations and this, that, and the third. I think it's important for people to realize that the longer Ukraine basically continues to try to hold out, the more of Ukraine they're going to lose.
Correct. I believe we said this on like the third week of the war. The best solution for Ukraine long term is a negotiated settlement. And the longer they wait, the more territory they will lose.
Yeah, that's right.
And this continued talk about, well, we're taking it all back, including Crimea, that's never, ever going to happen. So they have to take whatever they can get and try to preserve as much of what they have as they can.
Here's a little bit on this is a headline from 4 weeks ago. Ukrainian defenses in Donbass risk getting steamrolled by Russian advance. Says here, on the front lines of Donbass, the situation remains difficult. Ukraine's army chief said in a Telegram message, Ukrainian forces are still holding back one of the most powerful Russian offensives since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. A renewed push by Russian forces that began in the springtime now seems to be bearing fruit in East Ukraine. The Russian army has advanced 478 square kilometers into Ukrainian territory. In October, according to the AFP study analyzing data from American think tank, the ISW, this is the largest advance that's been made since the early days of the full-scale offensive. So, and then down here, there's another story here. This is that same ISW data. This is from 2 weeks ago, so 2 weeks after the first story. It says ISW data shows Moscow's forces have seized just around 2,700 square miles of Korean territory so far this year, compared with 465 square kilometers in the whole of 2023, a near six-fold increase. A defense researcher from King's College suggested to the BBC that there was a possibility that the Ukrainian Eastern Front might actually collapse if Russia continued to advance at pace. More than 1,000 square kilometers was taken between 1 September and 3 November. Just think about that, Joe. In a 2-month period of time, Russia has made huge advances. So that's showing an increase in the rate of gains that they're making, which kind of signals to that idea that we may actually see a collapse in the Donbass and on this front.
Yeah, I mean, they're having problems with retention, having problems with recruiting, they're having problems with drafting. They're having massive resistance to the draft, and they're having guys desert on the front lines. It's time to score a good deal and put an end to all of the killing out there.
Yeah.
Granted, Georgia still has occupying Russian troops in Abkhazia and South Ossetia. They did it right after a total of 5 days of open combat and 10 days of total conflict. Georgia sought a negotiated settlement and kept them from losing more territory and actually regained them some, because if you remember at the time of the ceasefire, Russia held Gori and was on its way to Tbilisi. And they pulled back and only kept what they claimed they wanted to liberate, which was Abkhazia and South Ossetia.
Yep. York's got a good point here. 60 people watching, but only 18 likes. Everyone hit the button. Yeah. So if you're on YouTube, hit the like button. It usually goes up a lot faster on YouTube than Rumble. But Rumble also has a like button, a thumbs up. So if you're watching over on Rumble, if you're one of the, what do we got over here? 72 folks watching over on Rumble. Please go ahead and hit the thumbs up. All right. Anyway, so what you're seeing is just a progressive increase in gains by Russia, and it seems to be gaining in momentum. I think this looks very bad for Ukraine, and the longer they wait, the worse it's going to get. All right, so just this is really our only domestic story of today. Joe, we did get some good news. That DEA guy that we went down, I think it was Monday. Was it Monday or was it Friday we talked about him? Monday, right. So that guy has withdrawn his name from consideration for the DEA chief. I think that is absolutely a win by America First Patriots.
And we'll take full credit for it here at the show.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But I will say that it's not just a win for American Patriots. I'd say more specifically, we give credit to the people who did it. This is a win for internet schizos everywhere. Thank you for your service, hounding this man down and exposing his record.
And I honestly think he lost on the record is where I think he lost. It wasn't that he's a bad guy. It's not that we don't like him for any personal reason. It's because of it's entirely because of his record and the actions that he has shown. Specifically, if I had to put my finger on one thing, it wasn't the woke stuff. It was the prosecution of religion during the COVID-19 lockdowns. In a state that didn't require the heavy lockdowns.
This also exposes the problem that I've been talking about and people castigate me for with the Trump administration and their picks. If we all were able to find this information on the guy, they darn well should have already had it. So they're not doing a very good job of vetting out the people that they're appointing to these positions. In fact, he did this on the recommendation of Bondi, and just went on her word, didn't do any digging, anything like that. There has to be more vetting and more in-depth thought process that goes into these nominations than what they're doing.
Yeah.
And when everyone says that, well, you're just anti-Trump. I'm not, actually. I think Donald Trump was the right choice. But I just wish the guy would make better picks and spend a little more time picking them rather than doing, as I know you all think it's hilarious, rather than memeing these picks and picking the person that he knows will upset the left the most. Actually needs to do some due diligence and hire the right people for the right jobs.
You know, Joe, I think there's one of two ways that this guy got his foot in the door. Either A, because he's a Florida guy, he has met or ingratiated himself into Donald Trump's kind of circle at some point. So Donald Trump's like, yeah, I know that guy. He seems like a good guy to me. Let's just go with him. Or the other one is I think Bondi, recommended him as somebody from Florida that would be good for a senior federal law enforcement job.
Well,
he's one of us.
Was seen hanging out with, and then Bondi was seen hanging out with our favorite ladybug this weekend. So,
yeah, I mean, there might be just some kind of politicking that goes along with having to be around senior Republicans, even if you are vilely disgusted by them. But at the same time, you're right. It also may be indicative of where her opinion is on a lot of stuff.
Speaking of, since we're talking about his picks, Laura brought it up in the chat. She said that Cash was a great pick. I don't know if you all noticed this or caught this, but the FBI has begun some narrative shaping around Cash Patel.
Yep.
They informed him that he has been the target of an Iranian hack of his communications, and that they just might start releasing some revealing communications he's had with other people. Make no mistake, it's not the Iranians that are about to release this stuff.
Oh, no.
It is the FBI. And they're going to be releasing some stuff that is probably not going to be flattering for Cash, because the FBI does not want Cash at the head.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Cash is one of those guys he's actually the real goods. I think he's got the background to be able to be effective, but he also knows enough on where the bodies are buried and what the kind of crimes that have been committed by the FBI in the last 16 years or so. So that'll be interesting. The other one that's in the news again is Pete Hegseth is again. Now, Joe, I mean, we saw the anonymous sources coming out of the White House. We saw the anonymous sources on, CIA information about the Trump campaign. Now we're seeing anonymous sources say that Pete Hegseth was just a big old drunk when he worked at Fox News. Well, I never saw him drunk on TV, so maybe he's a, functional alcoholic. I don't know. I mean,
or maybe some people, when they travel, that's just how they are, and that's. Yeah. I don't get it. If he was a serious drunk, it would be known, right?
So. And he wouldn't be able to be functional. Let's be honest. I mean, they have functional alcoholics, but functional alcoholics really don't drink a lot. They just drink as much as they need to in order to be functional, and that's it.
Also, I'm just saying he was in the wrong branch to be one of those functional alcoholics. So
that's true. Hunch the Dirty Roofer $5 says, now my fellow internet autists, our target is the blonde bimbo Bondi. Yeah, based.
Based, man. Vet everybody's records. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
no one
like I
should
said,
be safe from criticism.
yeah, like I said, I think for the most part we're having some decent picks here, but there are definitely some stinkers in here, and we avoided the biggest stinker thus far in the DEA guy. So let's keep it up. And this is one of the reasons why we talk about this stuff on here, guys. It's not because we want to become some politics, YouTube channel. In fact, that's the last thing I want to talk about. I want to talk about war, right? I want to talk about conflict. I want to talk about where the next war is going to come from. That's what I want to talk about. But all these things are like things that are potentially going to start the war in America.
I was going to say, what if the future conflict is here?
Exactly right. You got to know who the players are. The backstabbers at Fox would never. Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's plenty of backstabbers at Fox. I'm sure that's where that come from. But
and actually, Steve, you're right. This pick by Trump, that guy is actually a good pick. But he says he has contacts in the Lebanese government, which is a hilarious misnomer. There is no such thing as the Lebanese government. It's Hezbollah.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually, that guy was a pretty good pick.
So there's a headline out now. This is only related through domestic politics, where the New York City. So this is Eric Adams, the New York City mayor, vows to work with Trump on mass deportations. He says, "Cancel me." Joe, I get the feeling this is a Democrat who's he realizes he's been stabbed in the back by the current wing of the party, and he's like, I'm not necessarily going to become a Republican, but when a good idea is a good idea, I'm going to work with it. So
actually, I think it's hilarious that the illegal immigrant issue has taken an absolute extremist. Make no mistake, Eric Adams was an extremist when he took office.
Right.
Has taken an absolute leftist extremist like Eric Adams and brought him around full circle to where he's like, build the wall, deport them all. I mean, when it actually came to roost in his backyard, he suddenly had a change of heart on this whole issue.
Right. So this is, I get the feeling that what I've seen in Eric Adams is a legitimate kind of changing of a point of view, right? And it's from a couple different things, right? The first one is exactly what you just said, Joe. He saw the negative effects on his neighborhoods. And if he followed these policies, whether they were the kind of no bail policies or the light sentencing for illegal immigrants, or even, God forbid, the no arrest, the bail reform, no arrest stuff. He's seeing what it's doing to his city, right? And then the other side of that is that we have noticed that he got no protection from this prosecution on these corruption charges. Now, Joe, if the Democrats cover corruption better than anybody in the world, they cover it up better than anybody in the world. If they wanted to save him, they could easily save him from this. Yet they decided they didn't want to, and so they stabbed him in the back. And now he's kind of. I think a guy like Eric Adams, you're right, he does change his mind on some things, but I think the other part of it is he starts to become free, right? He can actually speak away from the donors, which is, the donors are the thing that scare the Democrats like crazy.
Yeah. Yep. And what's funny is it's like they have an entire agency dedicated to helping them cover up corruption under the guise of fighting corruption. Weird.
Well, Forging Freedom TV says that Eric Adams is the unintentional insurgent for MAGA at this point. Yeah, I mean, well, just like Tulsi Gabbard, right? I mean, let's be honest. Tulsi Gabbard really hasn't changed that much. She's pretty much the same Tulsi Gabbard she was when she ran for president. The difference is the party has changed so much, and they have stabbed her in the back, that she, has no personal loyalty to any of the people who have basically tried to destroy her political career. And B, she realizes that the Democratic Party of today is leaving her behind. She's like a Democrat from one of these 90s Democrats. I mean, she's still a socialist, don't get me wrong, but I mean, she's from
I'm
Hawaii.
gonna disagree a little bit on that. You're distracted by Tulsi's huge tracts of land.
Oh.
Tulsi Gabbard was in the in crowd and she was in Congress. And then when she was out, she decided she liked being in a whole lot better than she liked being out. And the only way for her to get back in was to pretend to be a Republican. And that's where she's at today.
Let me ask you this, Joe. It's hard to trust any of these people, but I get the feeling it's a mix of like real positions that they have that happen to align with us. So it's kind of like, that's good if they can find them. But then the other side of it is that I got to say this about this issue in order for them to continue to like me. What are the things that she's saying now publicly that you think are kind of, some of it's kayfabe and other things are real kind of, yeah, I get the feeling, especially with her military background, that the 2A stuff may be real, but she comes from Hawaii. Once she divorced herself from Hawaii, then she's free to not have. I mean, Hawaii's got stupid fucking gun rules.
The truth is, you want to believe her, so you do. The
well,
problem I have is
as a person. Yeah, I guess you're right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The problem I have is that you don't come from an extreme gun position like she espoused for years and years, and suddenly turn around 360 degrees. Doesn't happen. Does not happen. So I find it hard to believe that. And she also has the same elitist position on guns that a lot of even right-wing military people have, like Matt Best and Tim Kennedy and
I can
some
have
of
them,
our
but
other
you can't.
mutual friends on there, that only we who are trained should be allowed to have this, and that's not right. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I try to see the best in people, and and I want to assume that somebody is telling the truth when they tell me something. But that's people, right? And I forgot that there's your problem. You forget that you're talking about trusting these politicians. You're right.
So, and that's kind of the thing, right? We come from different backgrounds. I come from a professional investigations background where you don't trust anybody, and everyone is potentially lying to you. So you look for the lies. And once you start looking for the lies, they're pretty easy to see.
Well, this kind of goes to the idea of projection, right, Joe? I mean, so when I come from a background of, my word is my bond, and honor is a very important thing. Integrity, like these are all things that I think that I hold to be, sacred. But I also was around people that felt the same way too, whether it was my background as an Army officer or, whether it was my family and the Boy Scouts and all this kind of stuff. And so I project that, I think, on people just naturally, right? Unless they do something that obviously shows me that they are absolutely a snake in the grass, then, I just assume they are like me. That's me projecting a positive kind of viewpoint on them. That may not be one that they share. So I don't know. It's one of these evolving kind of things where as we become more aware of the duplicity around us, we have to just be able to see the world for as it is versus what we want it to be. So, all right. See, Laura Cox, I think that's a great idea. Joe, I mean, what do you think? Would you take $200,000 a year in order to be an advisor?
I think we might actually already be doing it because we espoused our opposition
and
to
sure
the
enough,
DEA guy, and he is no longer the DEA guy.
So I think let's just officially take credit for that, Joe. If I give credit to anybody, it's the guy who made that tweet. And that tweet absolutely eviscerated him. And it had receipts for every point in it too. So I think that's the kind of thing that X does better than the media didn't do that, Joe. This is some random dude on X did this. All right, let's jump into.
Hold on, actually, Scott. Before we go, Joe and I have some future conflicts around our circles to share with people.
We've discovered something in here. So,
what's this?
So
go ahead.
I'm just there may be a little bit of future conflict brewing between Braxton McCoy and Dale Stark. Dale says, thinking of starting beef with Braxton. If anybody has dirt, hit me up. And Huh.
Our boy Huntsman found it. Yeah.
I'm loving that. Oh, yeah.
Anyway,
Hey,
that was weird.
here's the exit. Here's the exit question for me on with you guys with the Trump selection process as it goes. This comes from Laura Cox. Who should Trump pick for DEA? It's a good question.
I'm going to give the same answer I gave about the FBI. No one. Burn it to the ground. Do you get the feeling that the DEA has had any impact on drug smuggling rather than to facilitate it?
Facts.
Burn it to the ground.
Yeah,
Facilitate it and then grift off of breaking down low-level offenders in order to generate.
This is where you
cash
need
for
Ron in here to tell you about the antics and exploits of the DEA intelligence agents in theater. Right?
Yeah.
If you've ever encountered a DEA agent in theater, and I'm sure you have, Scott,
I have.
You will learn a thing or two about the DEA.
The funny thing is, the funniest thing about the working around the DEA guys in Afghanistan was that, like, when like the D boys showed up, or when it was like the real OGA type guys showed up, there was this kind of like collective, like, oh my God, you can see, who these guys are, all this kind of thing, right? The problem is the DEA would have the same kind of high-end kit that a lot of these people have. And invariably, though, they would have DEA, or they would have some sort of law enforcement kind of thing
Police.
on they shouldn't have had any. They should be completely sterile. Their uniform should have been sterile. But they had something on there, and it was just kind of like eye roll. It's like as soon as you knew they were the narcs, it was kind of like, they show up with all their high-end kit and their suppressed M4s with, and their quad tube nods or whatever, and everybody's just kind of rolling their eyes, being like, "Oh my God, these guys."
I remember a young Marine Corps corporal telling 2 U.S. Marshals in Panama, nobody down here can read that, right? Because their jacket said U.S. Marshal. I'm like, nobody down here knows what that is or what that means, right?
That's funny.
Anyway.
As much as I love banging on about the DEA and making fun of them, there is actually a very, very important thing happening here in America that could determine a lot of future conflicts domestically. And I believe it's happening today, although these things roll kind of slow. The Supreme Court is currently looking into a case on whether it will be federally legal for state to outlaw child sex change procedures. And I'm just saying, pay attention to that. There's going to be a lot of coverage around it, and it's probably one of the more important Supreme Court decisions in our lives, I would say.
Well, yeah. Well, I know, I saw that's coming. Real quick, I wanted to get this. Hunch Dirty Roofers for $2. Joe Rogan for DA head. Ha ha, Hunch. Really funny.
So, see, like I said, we shouldn't be making picks based on memes, but yeah.
Yeah, it's what is it? Ayahuasca for everybody.
But I'll point out that the DEA, when it was originally the ONDD, Office for National Dangerous Drugs Prevention, whatever it was, they gave a badge to Elvis Presley. So let's just start there, right?
Who died of a heroin overdose, right?
Yeah, who died of a heroin overdose. So,
all right, let's Joe, you want to talk real quick about some of the stuff you got coming up with tactical-wisdom.com, or I'll just throw it to you.
Well, sure. I wrote an article about other self-defense options the other day. I'm writing one right now. I'm partway done with, where I talk about hunting as a way to improve and develop your patrolling skills and fieldcraft skills.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always have to involve actually shooting things. I can go out, practice those same skills, obtain a good sight picture, and not shoot a deer. You can do that year round and actually get out and train and practice. And I'll tell you what, that's why the American fighting man of the Revolution and the French and Indian War and the War of 1812 was so good is because we used to have a rugged outdoor lifestyle. The reason why we keep losing to people from Southwest and Southeast Asia is because they spend a lot more time outdoors than the average American or European. So actually get out and do some stuff. And that's what the article will be about.
Yeah, that's a real good point, Joe. I mean, just getting in the wood line. I mean, even if it's, you know, cross country hiking, something, anything that gets you into the wood line and gets you kind of around, having to practice the little kind of micro skills is one of I've heard people call it, not the big skills like fire starting or things like that, but just the little skills of like knowing how to, land nav. I kind of think of those as one of the micro skills and things like this, but
how to walk quietly in the woods, one of the micro skills. Right?
Hey, what direction are you going from? Hey, where's the sun at? It's in the morning. The sun's over here. Okay, that's east, so I'm going north, right? Just little things like that and thinking it through.
You know what? There's a great book on that called The Natural Navigator. It was sitting right here, but there's a book about how to read the signs and know exactly where you are, what direction you're heading. So, yeah, absolutely. Get out and do it. So that's what I'm writing about this week. It is time, though, if you want to buy a T-shirt, a patch, or a book for Christmas for someone and you want them signed or from our website, you need to get that done in the next week or so in order for us to guarantee it. We're already in December. I think the 15th is about the last day we can guarantee things. That's about 11 days from now. So go to our website and buy some books. And you know what? I see Tyler Payne making a comment about getting out in the woods. Tyler Payne was recently at a fieldcraft course along with Hunch. So get out in the woods, get out and do stuff, man. Yeah. Josh Clark was there with Tyler Payne in that class. For those who haven't been in the service, you need to take fieldcraft. Joe will run you through individual movement techniques and a lot more. Absolutely. I'll run you up a hill, make you come back down. All kinds of fun stuff. But need to get out there and get in the woods. So what we have coming up on that is we got more courses. We have Kay coming out here to Camp Ponderosa to do Ground Rod Level 2 on digital fieldcraft, which is a fantastic course. I'll be doing a one-day seminar kind of thing where we're going to do stick fighting for 4 hours in the morning and knife combat for 4 hours in the afternoon. No, I'm not the Duke of anything. I am the master at arms for the Duke of Montana. Just so you know that, SCWSB. Anyway, then in February, Matt and I are doing a whole series of courses. It's going to begin with my fieldcraft, roll into NC Scouts, Scout, and Recce course, followed by fighting Kalashnikovs. So there's about a week and a half to 2 weeks of straight training down there that I'm pretty sure some of the folks in the chat are probably going to come to. We're going to have a good time at it. And it's funny, Jay Clark. And then we're just going on from there. We're going to do a whole bunch more. I've got at least one class a month scheduled out here at Camp Ponderosa. The schedule is listed right there. And we'll be adding more and more to it. Check it out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Glad to see more tactical wisdom in the near future. So be looking forward to hearing reports from how those go. And, like it would be nice seeing Joe in some better climate during the middle of the winter.
Right. It's good. It's going to be a little cold here to be doing anything. I know one guy said, "Hey, I don't see this class, and this class on the list that you told me you were going to do." Listen, I've only made this schedule through May, and until May, it's not warm enough to do anything where you're staying out in the field for a weekend. So we'll catch those in June, July, and August.
All right, let's jump right into our main topic for today. We're talking Syria, guys.
One more thing quickly on the odds and ends. I saw a couple of people mention it in the chat. The Daniel Penny jury is out. But let me remind you all that building is completely surrounded at the moment by Antifa and other leftist protesters in an obvious attempt to influence the jury. Daniel Penny's trial actually has an impact on your ability to defend yourself. So,
yeah, 100%. All right, let's start off this Syria section with a good old fashioned map overview. This is the progress, of HTS and the other various factions that have been involved from since the beginning of the assault of Aleppo to essentially where they're at today. Joe, I mean, so first things first, when you look at this map, you see several different colors. You've got Turkey is the royal blue there at the top. Then you've got the two separate Turkish-backed sections. You had like HTF and the kind of the Aleppo terror kind of group, and then you've got the blue and black hash area, which is the Free Syrian Army. And then you've got the yellow, which are the Kurds, and of course the red is the Syrian army, which that is also Russia and Iranian forces in there as well. So you saw Aleppo. It was just kind of like a bunch of fighting along the border, and then it just kind of broke loose, which is exactly what we've seen recently.
I refuse to acknowledge the legitimacy of any map that is written in Turkish.
Hey man, like I had to deal with it so much, I don't even notice it anymore hardly.
Just feeding into that Ottoman supremacy.
That's right. Well, I mean, they're thinking of this as all future Turkey, right? They got to sort this out so we can come in and like take it over from them. The interesting thing is that on one hand, you basically have Al Qaeda fighting the Syrians, and then on the other hand, you've got some fairly moderate kind of mouthpieces that are in the employment of Turkey. There's an interesting story. I think we're going to talk about it here. We may not, but anyway, the idea is how Turkey has Did you finish the video? Did it end? I thought it still had a little more to go.
No, there was a little more. I thought you were moving to the next story. I thought that's what you were saying.
No, I don't. I was just checking to see if the story was on the list because I don't think it was. Anyway, so this was a story about basically how Turkey has stabbed everybody in the back. Because Turkey was all anti-Israel, so they stabbed Syria in the back. They've stabbed Iran in the back. They've basically sided with Israel because Israel is helping Al Qaeda, which is a kind of ironic. And they're also stabbing the moderate Kurds in the back, which is, let's be honest, if we want to, Joe, if I want to prop up one group in this whole area, it's the moderate Kurds. It's not like, it's not the crazy Kurds who want to kill Turks. It's I just want to be left alone Kurds. And Turkey is not all about that.
Well, the crazy thing about folks who just want to be left alone, including here in America, is that the other side gets a vote. Yeah. And it'd be great for us to be able to support them so they can stand on their own. But as long as there are Islamic extremists in the area, they're not going to leave you alone. So,
yeah, this is right. And by the way, I don't know if you guys noticed, but the Free Syrian Army folks completely took out that secondary Kurdish pocket that had been up there in around Al Bab for a long time. They took that pocket out, and there's still a Kurdish pocket in northern Aleppo, which was an area that the Kurds occupied prior to this offensive as well. So they're really the only holdouts left in Aleppo. But my understanding is there's no fighting in that area. That's a kind of an agreed situation. Some of the people had been shipped out to Manbij and other areas to the east, but that's the situation there. All right, let's jump into this next story. This is exactly what I expect. From the current administration. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says U.S. won't cry about the pressure Syria is facing from Al Qaeda linked fighters. I.e., hey, I'm on Al Qaeda's side. You know, we said it on Monday, Joe. There are no good guys in this. These are all bad guys. Bad guys fighting bad guys is what this is.
Correct. Both sides.
So ultimately, really, the only sides that I see that we could potentially align ourselves with are either the Israelis or the Turks, right? Because, nominally the Turks are our allies, but not really. So that's the reason why we have aligned ourselves with the Kurds. But ultimately, Joe, we've got no business hanging out with the Kurds after ISIS is not even a thing anymore. Or maybe it's on the comeback with HTS. Let's see. He said that we will not cry over the pressure the Syrian government and its allies are facing from the offensive on Aleppo by HTS, which is an offshoot of Al Qaeda. Yep, that's something you know if you watch this program. Sullivan acknowledged that HTS was a terrorist organization.
They're like incognito on Google Chrome, right? They are Al Qaeda. Just because they changed the cover doesn't mean that they're not Al Qaeda. So,
well, before they were HTS, they were Al Nusra, right? The Al Nusra Front, which is Al Qaeda, right? It was literally just another name for Al Qaeda. It said that the U.S. had real concerns about the fact that this is a terrorist organization designated by the United States, and had concerns about the designs and objectives of that organization. But he added, this is Jake Sullivan, remember, at the same time, of course, we don't cry over the fact that the Assad government, backed by Iran, Russia, Hezbollah, is facing certain kinds of pressure. So I get that. But the problem is that ultimately, when you're in the position of having to cheer on either Al Qaeda or the Syrians, you just kind of say, well, this doesn't have anything to do with us. We're out of this. No comment. Let them have at each other. U.S. officials have not been shy in the past about their preference for HTS and its leader, which I don't get that. Where is there any fucking... Anyway, James Jeffrey, an American diplomat who served as a special envoy to Syria under the Trump administration from 2018 to 2022, said in a 2021 interview that HTS was an asset of the U.S. strategy in Idlib, a northern Syrian province that's been under HTS control since 2017. They're the least bad option. Go ahead.
That's why they changed their name to Al Nusra Front. When the war in Syria was going hot and heavy, and the U.S. was handing out boxes and boxes of rifles and ammo, some Al Qaeda guys were told, well, we can't give those to you because you're specifically mentioned as not being eligible for these. They said, oh, well, let me take the Al Qaeda mask off and put on my incognito mask and say, well, we're the Nusra Front. Oh, here's a box of rifles. And that's kind of how that went. So they went from being a U.S. enemy to being an ally in record time.
Yeah, funny how that works.
And Pinochet on the $2 one, we talked about that on Monday.
Yeah, Pinochet's helicopters for $2 says, anyone hear about the 2 U.S. destroyers attacked in the Red Sea? Now, let me ask you this, Joe. When I saw that, I got the feeling that this was a separate incident from the one that we reported on.
But when you look at the details, it was the same event.
Okay, all right. Because
the one said, that escorting 3 U.S. flag tankers, and the exact number of weapons shot down was that. It's just that the destroyers were specifically named this time. I know that Colonel McGregor brought it up last night, and everyone thought it was something new. But it even mentions that the date was sometime between November 30th and December 1st, which is the event that we already talked about.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Let us move into this next story here. So we had gotten reports all the way back. I want to say this was Sunday when I first heard about it. But the idea that A-10 Warthogs from U.S. A-10 Warthogs operating in and around, the Atanaf area were doing defensive strikes against Iraqi PMP forces that are coming from Iraq into PMF. That's what it is, right? PMF. That are coming into Syria from Iraq. It says here a U.S. A-10 war, but I guess this finally actually has happened. Those were all rumors, and this is confirmation. A A-10 Warthog was been filmed flying low and doing strafing runs over eastern Syria as fighting has broken out there in the wake of the fall of the Aleppo to HTS jihadists. It appears the U.S.-backed SDF, which is the Syrian Democratic Forces, are clashing with pro-Syrian forces, including the possible Syrian army and allied militias, some of which have been pouring across the border from Iraq. U.S. CENTCOM has said, who's yet to confirm anything, but one independent geopolitical news source writes, the U.S. Air Force A-10 Warthog combat jets are purportedly deployed in Syria to conduct airstrikes against Iran-linked militias that entered Syria to fight the rebels that have launched a fresh offensive against Bashar al-Assad's regime, Pentagon officials said. So basically they are stationed out in west or eastern Syria. Probably these are flying either out of Jordan or airfields in Iraq, oddly enough. Says here the original source and analyst who closely watches eastern Syria said U.S. airstrikes targeted positions of Iran-backed militias in Deir ez-Zor in eastern Syria. So this would support the fact that these are militias that are flowing from Iraq into Syria, and that's where this comes from. We got a little video here.
I think it's interesting too, though. This is the first time that we may have directly engaged the Syrian Arab Army. So, crazy.
So we got a little A-10 over the city action. Some cow moves in the background.
Let's
So when they fly low like that over population centers, they generally call those show of force missions, where just flying, it lets you know that they're there. They're dropping flares right there.
Sorry, I had the sound on because I was hoping we'd get a bird.
Yeah, I know, but we didn't. That's all right. That's kind of what I
if
figured.
you've ever had one of those fly over or near you in the field, it makes such a distinctive sound that you know exactly what type of aircraft it is before you ever see it.
Yeah, the engine sound is really
So it's turbofans.
Yeah.
It's pretty spectacular airframe. I don't know why we keep trying to scrap it. It's just one of the best planes we've ever created. I don't get it.
Yeah, I agree. It's got a mission that no other airframe can do, even come close to doing that mission as well.
I agree with you, gents. I do, but I do know the logic behind why we keep trying to get rid of it. And that is, defense contractors can't make money off of something the U.S. government already owns.
Yeah, and that works so well. Yeah. What's funny is every time we try to scrap it and dismantle it, we get embroiled in a conflict where it is the only tool for the job, and it gets a new lease on life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's it's one of those kind of things. I get the feeling that the Trump administration will probably pump a little more into the A-10 program, God willing. Until we get something that can do it better, I don't know why you would give rid of it,
Same with the B-52, right?
Yeah, man. So we've got the interesting thing about the B-52 is we've got a new version of the B-52 that's getting ready to break cover here in the next little bit with completely new engines, right? And these new engines will almost double the power on the aircraft, allowing it to carry larger payloads. And it's way more efficient, so evidently it will be able to fly further at less gas. So very cool project. No, talking about that kind of stuff is not the focus of this program. But if you're a kind of a military gear nut like I am, that's the kind of stuff I like to read about. All right, let's go on.
I just want to know why our friend Dale has never come on to talk A10s with us. I'm offended.
Well, I back in the day when our program was relatively new, I tried to get him to come on, but he begged off because of his requirements to his job, his career, and all that kind of stuff. And so he's like, maybe when I get out, I'll come on. And so, I mean, maybe it's time for us to hit Dale Stark up again.
Well, like all pilots, if you don't tell them how great they are every 40 seconds, they will not engage with you.
That's true. You got a point.
They're forced to do it themselves, and that gets awkward.
So this next story is kind of more fodder for this whole idea of the popular mobilization forces and things like this. Iran ready to send more troops to Syria, but this could trigger deeper Israeli entry. That's right. Israel has definitely seen a linkage between Iran and Syria, and they've consistently gone after IRGC targets. Like, let's be honest, everywhere inside of Syria, not just the capital of Damascus, but literally in diplomatic compounds, they've gone after these guys. Well, let's maybe we chalk that one up to the military industrial complex, queering the deal for everybody there, Hunch.
Right.
All right, let me jump right into this one. If Syrian government
you
asked
said
Iran,
queering like it's a bad thing. In the new society of America, queering is a good thing.
Well, I didn't say it was bad. I just used it. I'm trying to show that I'm hip and up to date and with it. If the Syrian government asks, hello, fellow Gen Xers or Gen Zers. If the Syrian government asks Iran to send troops to Syria, we will consider the request, says the foreign minister of Iran. He was quoted saying this in a Qatar-based outlet, Al-Arabi Al-Jadid, which was later picked up by Reuters. Iran is preparing a series of steps to calm the situation in Syria and find an opportunity to present an initiative for a permanent solution. Let's see, that the takeover of Syrian territory by terrorist groups may harm Syria's neighboring countries such as Iraq, Jordan, Turkey, and more than Iran. This is true, Joe. I mean, operating against HTS for a lot of these surrounding countries makes sense because HTS is not going to be a good neighbor.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for that. Tehran is willing to consult and dialogue with Turkey over regional differences, and its leaders will soon hold direct. Now, see, that's appropriate talks, right? Syria's proxy daddy goes to talk to HTS's proxy daddy, right? So that's how that works, right? Tehran is willing to consult and dialogue with Turkey over the regional differences, and its leaders will soon hold direct talks again with President Vladimir Putin to coordinate a response. Iran has, of course, long had troops in Syria assisting Assad's forces, but any kind of bigger surge of Iranian and IRGC troops is sure to be noticed in a big way by Israel. And so there are a lot of guys coming in to. I want to show this tweet here. Watcher, if you look at the segment 1 area on the notes, can you pull up this the bottom one, the massive Iraqi PMF convoy? Now, Joe, get a load of the numbers of guys that they've got. These are the guys in Iraq that are kind of mobilizing to come out here and help.
man, a major world power that had bases right nearby that could just smoke these lines just sitting still.
Yep. Well, the interesting thing is that while it looks very impressive, you got to remember those are T-55s. They're basically rolling pillboxes, right? Fire support vehicles for infantry, not any kind of serious tank on tank action. So it's just, I think this is interesting to see the professionalism of these Iranian trained militias in Iraq that are now basically saying that they're going to go and fight for the Syrian government. So that's interesting.
Almost like they're turning into a regional war. Weird.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is that if Iran jumps against Israel, they're creating natural allies for Israel in the region. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. All right, let's go into the last story on this section here. Russia's prize bases along the Mediterranean in Syria could be at risk. This is a story from the War Zone. The rapid and sudden push south by anti-regime forces in Syria has caused a geopolitical quake throughout the region. I wonder if we can get a map up. Yeah. Okay, so there's a map in the story here. So it's easy to kind of illustrate this. And we talked about this previously. I just want to show everybody kind of visually what we're talking about here before we get into the weeds. That's not the map that I'm looking at. If you just go up further and up to closer to the top of the story, I think it's actually the first map you see. Yep, there you go. That's the one. All right. So if you look here, you've got the kind of the point of this green arrow kind of pushing into Syria is Hama. And this is the city that is being threatened right now. Aleppo, further to the north of the green section, was taken the other day. And this basically is looking to push down this main highway from, you got Aleppo, you've got Hama, and then you've got Homs, which is kind of right here in this elbow of where Lebanon kind of sockets into Syria. So if they get to Homs, they are essentially cutting off Tartus and Latakia. What do you say? How did you say that one?
Yeah.
That's what I said, right? Latakia. Come on now. It basically cuts off these two major facilities for the Russians. And there's already reports that the Russians are pulling equipment out of Tartus time now. Joe, what's your kind of take on this? And do you expect to see the Russians continue to kind of pull back, or you think they're going to stay in country? They'll just kind of relocate to someplace maybe closer to Damascus?
Well, I know that all of the shipping that was at Latakia put to sea yesterday at high speed. I know they didn't have a very good time in that last Israeli missile strike that struck right around the naval base. So for some reason, I'm not saying they're pulling out, but for some reason, all of the Russian shipping that was tied alongside has put to sea. I don't know what's going on at Naimem or whatever it's called, the air base outside of there. But I do know that they did pull out of their naval base, at least the ships. The troops are still there. The sailors manning the base are still there. But all of the shipping has left the port. So I don't know. It may very well be that they're evacuating the base.
All right. Yeah, because
which is technically Russia's only warm water base, right? The closest thing to a warm water port they have, other than this, is in Crimea. So, yeah.
Well, they've got the Crimea, and then they've got the coast over there by there's a base along the Black Sea coast with Russia proper, but I can't remember. Sochi is in that area as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so, all right. Let me kind of continue on with this article. So anyway, as you can see, those areas along the Mediterranean Sea, which is why they picked them probably, are now under threat. As we've reported for years, Putin's reward for backing Assad nearly a decade ago, as his regime was under crushing threat after years of civil war, was two critical bases: the air base at Latakia and the sprawling naval facility at the port of Tartus. In 2017, Russia was basically gifted these facilities, and Moscow signing a 49-year lease on both of them. This gave Russia a master airbase and naval installation on the Mediterranean. The only such facilities under Russia's control. From here, Moscow could project power along NATO's southern flank and into the Middle East and Africa. And that is exactly what Moscow has done. Its naval forces have gained a warm water port to support prolonged operations in the Mediterranean, along with an airfield capable of bedding down tactical and strategic air power with the ability to strike any direction and threaten NATO warships across the Mediterranean. So, as you can see, these are pretty important facilities for the Russians. And, let's be honest, I know they don't want to give them up, but they may be unable to make a difference ultimately. Rebel forces are just 35 kilometers from the base, Joe. I mean, I didn't realize they were that close.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's why they put to sea. For two reasons. One, they don't want the rebels to score a quick and easy hit by sinking some sort of patrol craft. But two, they don't want to get accidentally struck in somebody's counterstrike, right? All it takes is one errant rocket to sink a ship, and then you got all kinds of problems. And now Russia would have to respond. So the best thing they could do is get them out to sea.
That's the best way to protect them. Well, oddly enough, that's what you do when a hurricane comes in too. You get them out to sea.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let me continue to look down. Whatever the case, Russia as well as Iran are clearly working to figure out how they can best keep Assad from losing more territory and turn the momentum in his favor on the battlefield. But Iran, too, is plagued with resource issues. Hezbollah, its top proxy, has been deeply degraded after months of fighting Israel, and it is far more limited in weaponry, manpower, and leadership and command and control capabilities than it was just months ago. The limits on how much the Iranians can help Assad via Hezbollah, other Iranian-aligned militias in Syria are also under pressure as opposition forces open up offensives against the regime on all fronts. Iran is supplying Houthis' anti-shipping campaign in and around the Red Sea, which is where we get these two, destroyers that were shot at by the Houthis. We covered that, I believe, on Monday. This is just kind of really interesting. This kind of goes to that further stabbing in the back. They're absolutely stabbing Russia in the back through this action, and that's Turkey, I'm saying, that is doing this. So, Joe or Watcher, any final thoughts on Syria stuff?
It's getting serious.
All right, guys. It's at this point at which I'm going to turn the show over to my good buddies here, Joe and Watcher, because I need to keep my mouth shut when it comes to this Korea stuff. The good news is that it's quieted down, but ultimately we all kind of pray and wish it never has to quiet down, right? So on that note, guys, Joe, Watcher, any final thoughts for me before I pop out? I'll be listening. I may not be in the chat. I may. Jay Clark, yes. Right. I don't need that. I posted about stuff last night on X. I have since deleted some of my tweets that I thought were a little too opinionated, and I have stopped posting new information on there about the situation in South Korea. So, yes, Matt Grisby, you're exactly right. I am popping smoke. The international hand sign for popping smoke, which I'm glad my wife knows that and often gives it to me as a way to get her out of a situation. So, gentlemen, Chad, I leave you guys in good hands. Thank you guys for joining me. And show your love for these guys. Gentlemen, take it away.
All right.
Before we dive into it, I wanted to mention something. You can see I'm wearing a Calyx shirt. I wanted to talk about the Calyx Institute and what they do for privacy. So Calyx Institute is they run the Calyx operating system, which is a more secure form of Android that takes de-Googles everything, takes all of the information gathering and things like that out of it. It is 100% crowdsourced and 100% open source source code, and they're supported only by donations. So a couple of neat things. The Calyx Institute has memberships where you can buy one. I bought this phone from Kay that runs on Calyx, and he's the one who recommended the Calyx Institute to me. If you get a membership at a certain dollar level, I won't say what it is, you got to go look for it, they will send you your own internet hotspot, which is registered to them and not you. I'll let you draw your own conclusions as to why you might want an internet connection that is not tied to your name, but kind of neat. So I just think it's something we should support. They're all about helping you with your internet privacy. Check out Calyx Institute on the web. So I think that gave Scott enough time to get away from the computer and out of the area.
Back left.
Yeah, right. All right, where we want to start?
Well, let's start with the surprise. Surprise! Martial law.
I'll be honest. I did not have this on the bingo card yesterday. When I was awakened by it, I was like, "You said what now?"
Which is funny because we probably should have, though, Joe. Right? I think it was you who posted the fact that how many of South Korea's leaders have left in, shall we say, less than democratic ways.
Yeah, this in back in the 70s and 80s, this was sort of the North Korean way, right? Every few months, someone would declare martial law, go after their enemies, and then come on back. So the truth is that this guy claims he was establishing martial law to defeat North Korean influences and communist influences, and that's what he was pursuing. And they did do a little bit of that, but the truth is that his wife was facing some serious corruption allegations, and he needed to kind of shock and put some space between her pursuers and her. And I think this might have shaken things up a little bit. It's a crazy thing. And Hunch is right. It's old Hong Kong who actually pointed that out, but it is true. So.
Well corrected. Thank you, Hunch.
And this is something that me and NC Scout and Anti-Pattern, for those who know him, Mark on Twitter mentioned yesterday, is that this there were a lot of Democrats watching this chain of events going, this is interesting. Let's see how this plays out. So there's going to be some crazy stuff.
Yeah. Well, South Korean military forces descended upon the country's parliament building and other parts of the capital, Seoul, following President Yoon Suk Yeol's unexpected declaration of martial law. And what I'm hearing is he accused the minority party of working in league with North Korea in order to subvert the government of South Korea. Am I getting that correct?
Yeah, I think what happened was he was panicking a little bit about his situation, and some of the generals said, hey, I've got this idea we've been working on. And that's why these troops were already set to be deployed to the parliament building. I am going to laugh a little bit because when you look at military police or militarized police, you see them do the same thing where they go into a dense urban area that's pretty well lit, with their quad tube nods on their helmet as if they're going to use them in an urban area where they'll be ineffective.
I would say
It's just
Seoul in particular. Isn't that like one of the most brightly lit cities on the planet?
right, and all you have to do to negate somebody's quad tube nods is flip a light switch, and but it looks cool. It looks great on the helmet. It looks really good on video. So these guys were attempting to keep the National Assembly from getting in the building in order to vote. And there was some scuffling outside. The National Assembly got in and voted 190 to 0 to end martial law. And then they kind of came in through there. The point is, though, is that their vote was irrelevant because the president had technically disbanded them already took away their authority earlier in the day. So it was really one of those really, really, really weird things that went back and forth.
Oh, agreed. So Jay Clark says something interesting there. He says, yeah, I thought the same thing at the Butler event when the QRF showed up with armor and nods already flipped up on their helmets. Yeah. Quick reaction forces to be like that.
Cops, and particularly federal law enforcement, are the worst offenders of this. They want to look like the cool guy operators. Kind of goes to the DEA thing we were talking about earlier, right? They're out there in theater wanting to look like the coolest of the cool guys with a lot of unnecessary junk. It's really hard, I'll be honest, to move in a CQB environment with those sticking off the top of your helmet. It really is, but it looks cool, so we're going to do it anyway.
So he also, in addition to the other things we've stated, apparently also vowed to eradicate, quote, anti-state forces. And look, so a lot of people are having opinions about this, and I'll just say I've been rather cautious to say anything, and it's not because I have any legal concerns. It's more just that, I've seen the way that the media and Antifa act in our country, and it makes me think twice before criticizing somebody who's going after those types of people. Because
but I caution against that, and I spent my entire day yesterday trying to tell people that they shouldn't be cheering this on, because there were a lot of folks who, when this first happened, said this is what Donald Trump needs to do. One, no, that plays directly into the left's narrative that he's going to declare martial law, right? And two, there is really a lot of rights that get taken away in martial law, and it's really cool to want to use that against your enemies. But what's good for the guy you like is also good for the guy you don't like. You would be against martial law if, say, Joe Biden declared it to annul this election. You're only pro-martial law if Donald Trump does it. Then martial law is not the answer.
Certainly, although in my case, it wouldn't be so much if Donald Trump does it. It's more just that, I saw thousands of screaming leftists throwing Molotov cocktails and explosives at the federal building, and then saw the media not only not report it, but report that
I addressed this argument
fiery,
yesterday.
but mostly peaceful.
I addressed this argument yesterday. Invoking the Insurrection Act does not establish martial law. The Insurrection Act still retains control with the local civilian government. The U.S. military just provides them with the force to enforce it. That's not martial law. It's still civil law with martial force backing it up. So I wholeheartedly agree we should have invoked the Insurrection Act, but that's also not martial law. That is a temporary putting down of an insurrection. So
Agreed. So now there is some question as to whether this is still in effect. Am I hearing that correctly? Because they voted to end it, but then the military told them, no, you in fact don't get to do that.
Well, there is some dispute as to whether or not it has ended. He did make an announcement that he was ending it, but I have not seen any definitive evidence that it has indeed ended. So we shall see. So I'm not 100% positive as far as what happened.
Real quick, there's a lot of people in the chat.
Declared it. I'm sorry, say it again.
Oh, you go ahead.
He did declare it. He did deploy troops to the National Assembly building. They attempted to block access there, which led to a lot of civil clashes, where one woman is incredibly lucky to have survived the encounter. I don't know if we have that video or not. But
let me see. Yes, we do. We do have that. Let's
let's play that video. Listen, man, if you're ever
real quick,
go ahead.
As we're transitioning to this video, I got to say, people are asking us a lot in the chat to comment on the United Healthcare CEO. Sorry, I think our standard 48-hour rule applies here. We simply do not know any more than you do. So give us some time to look into it.
Yeah. I'm going to say that. We'll talk about that on Friday. But I will say this. Since they say it was a targeted attack, watch for someone to tell you this was a MAGA person because of COVID. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, Joe, are you ready to deliver the object lesson about what not to grab?
Yeah. Hey, listen, if you're ever confronted with armed men, do not grab the rifle. That's a deadly threat. As someone attempting to take a rifle from you should be treated as such. Man, watch this. This woman is going to come up and grab the rifle, and it's not going to go well.
I think it already happened. Let me go back. Her.
Oh, that's not the angle I was looking at. There's a better angle where she comes up and she grabs it right by the suppressor. First of all, if the rifle's been fired, grabbing it by the suppressor is an absolutely terrible idea because you're going to miss. You're going to be missing some fingers. It's going to be hot. You're going to have some pretty severe burns. Second of all, just like Darth Hideous said, it's a great way to get holes in your chest by grabbing that rifle and tugging on it. The defense against that, if you're holding a rifle, someone grabs it, make a C and strike him in the chest with the muzzle.
Yeah, muzzle strikes, baby.
But as I point out in my community security class, if you have fixed bayonets, people don't try to grab the end of your rifle. It's not a really smart idea because they will lose fingers. But this is also why you always wear a sling. Somebody's going to grab your rifle, make them pull you, not just a rifle. Always wear a sling.
Positive weapon control at all times. Correct.
Yeah. What's funny is Tenok says grab his nods. Somebody left their nods there, just laying on the ground. That's free gear, right? There's an image at the end of one of those quad tubes just sitting on the ground. Man. And here it is, the image shared round the net yesterday. Everyone argued with me when I posted about this. I didn't say the image was new. I just said they're not tanks because whoever the original poster says tanks on the streets in Seoul. One, that's not a tank. Two, also still not a tank. And three, this is clearly not current because there are leaves on the trees and it's pretty darn cold there. So.
Correct. And also, funnily enough, hey, APCs on the street of Seoul, not an uncommon sight. It's almost as if they're still at war with their northern neighbors and are prepared for shit to go down at any moment.
Yeah, it's almost like they're less than 90 miles from the border, right? Or less than 40 miles from the border. Yep, it's an old image, but it's still not a tank, regardless of when the image was taken. So,
thank you, Michael Tracy, for your dedication in the journalistic arts.
Squishy Hunter. That's clearly a Samsung washer-dryer combo with an AR-15 on top. 100%. That's exactly what that is.
Here's the better angle, Joe.
There it is. That's the angle I was looking for. This was a terrible, terrible idea. And if you notice, if you watch that on a frame-by-frame thing, someone sent it to me, he snaps the safety off when that rifle's on center chest. That guy yanks her hand away, and then you see the guy snap his safety back on. He was ready to shoot her, as well he should have been. And he probably should have shot her long before that, right about there is when he should have hit her. If
look,
not shoot
I
her,
know the
muzzle
strike.
Huh?
Yeah, I know the ROK teaches muzzle strikes because that's part of where we got it from. So it should have happened. Just saying.
Yeah, just like a bayonet thrust, just strike her with the barrel in the chest, and she'll stop wanting to do that. So That's really a terrible idea, grabbing a gun like that. I mean, that's in every armed force and police force in the world, that's deadly force encounter right there. Someone tries to take your weapon. So, yes, just me. Seoul is close enough for artillery fire from the DMZ, 100%. And see that sweet camo? I think Scott has assured me that when he leaves Korea for the last time, he will be bringing me a set of ROK camo.
Damn, nice stuff.
That's some pretty legit camo right there. So.
No. So the comment from here from Fed Postinator.
Yeah, listen, Fed Postinator. No, you can't. She is a crazy leftist socialist woman. You don't want to even try. So,
but honestly, guys, that is all we really have to say on the topic, apart from martial law bad. I mean, can we just sum it
when
up
he
as...
declared it in the morning, I was like, short of actual North Korean commandos operating in the country, which has happened before, I can't imagine why you would do that. And it backfired terribly on him. He himself has backed down, allegedly. We will see.
Oh, hey, real quick. Excellent idea there, T. Modern problems require modern solutions.
Yeah, I don't know why we didn't get an announcement in the middle of this declaration of martial law that Johnny Somali was killed in the action near the National Assembly building. That would have been the right thing to do, and that would have made the martial law completely worth it. But second to that would be trebucheting him into North Korea. So,
well, I guess actually that's an example of modern problems requiring medieval solutions. But there we are.
Right on. I don't think it's a coincidence that Johnny Somali got beat up by a Korean Navy SEAL and then this happened. I think it was part of a greater plan at work.
Accurate. But chat, thanks for coming along for the ride today. We appreciate you. That's your news on Syria and Korea and several other things to boot. Keep up the schizo posting. Keep vetting all of Trump's preposterous picks. Any of the ones that aren't just any pick that Trump makes doesn't immediately make you be like, oh, that's fucking based. Look a little deeper, right? Because he probably has some of the same, we'll just give the deep state one or two little picks here and there to help keep them happy kind of feelings, or at least that's what it appears to me like is happening. And no, burn the whole thing down.
Right on. So we'll stay tuned on the absolute resolution of the South Korea thing. The truth is, there's not a lot of great info that came out because in the midst of all of it, they shut off all social media and internet access within the Republic of Korea. So there wasn't a lot of info getting out. We will see. And
all right.
We will be back Friday with another great show.
Yeah. And as Scott would say, stay safe.